p.m. Bonneville County Commissioner's Office at 605 North Capitol Avenue, Idaho Falls, Idaho. At this time, the Board of Commissioners will meet to consider adjusting the Bonneville County 20 and 20 budgets in order to receive and expend necessary funds not to be known to be available at the required. At the time the budget was originally adopted, these adjustments will not result in the increase of anticipated property taxes over the amounts previously levied. Do you want Rhonda to explain these, what the requests are, or do you want to?
Since I don't have it in front of me, I don't know, I can explain, as you tell me, I can tell you the one about elections, obviously.
Emergency management, 1.3 million.
Okay, the emergency management is to pay for some Henry Creek fires. Is it that, or is it the CARES grant fund?
I think it's the Henry Creek, isn't it, Ron? That funding came in. You're muted.
Commissioner, I don't have any of that budget information in front of me. I don't have a copy of it.
Okay.
I believe it was the Henry's Creek, the funding came in and it's to pay off some bills for that.
That was my understanding
Yeah.
when we talked to Brad.
Okay, and takes federal government quite a while to process that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, elections, 900,000.
Okay, that's money that we've been setting aside to purchase new election equipment due to some equipment hardware failure, and this had to be the year to do it. After the general election, we noticed that it wasn't going to last through another cycle. So we've been saving that money to do it.
Okay, Ririe Reservoirs and the Waterways. I think those are adjustments to be able to spend out of those for projects associated with them. Is that right, Ron?
Ruby just sent me a copy of the form. I hadn't seen this before now. I don't know.
Okay.
That would have to be, I think it was a grant that came in.
Oh, for that repair of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what comes to mind.
You ought to get Craig on the line, or are you comfortable?
No, I think that's adjusting, so we make sure and pay it out of the right fund,
Okay.
either Waterways or Ririe Reservoir, so they don't get intermixed.
Okay.
Because in the
We don't budget for some of his grants because he's constantly applying for them. And so
Right.
then when the grants come through, that's when we do budget openings for
Okay.
them.
and then solid waste, Lance.
That's for the rebuild of the compactor.
Because of the fire? Is
fire.
that what it-
Partly because of the fire, but just partly because of the rebuild was way more extensive than what we had originally thought it was going to be.
And insurance paid a fair amount of that, didn't they? On the
They paid
electronics.
for the repair cost, but
Okay.
they don't pay for the rebuild of the compactor.
Okay. Only one member of the public. Any questions?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'm curious to what the source of the funding is for this. If it's not gonna be property taxes, what is it?
Well, the emergency management was the money coming in from the federal government to pay the different entities. We had to be the agency to collect that. So that finally is coming in to be able to pay the other entities that participated. I think like Idaho Falls Fire, we're the ones that are we're the fiscal agent for those. So that's the federal money coming in, which we were awful lucky to get. Otherwise, that would have been a very expensive fire. Elections, I think, is the money in reserves. I think she was going to budget for that next year, but we had an equipment failure and wanting to make sure we keep our election equipment so we don't have issues with it. She had to replace those this year. Ririe Reservoir and Waterways are grants. Solid waste is the insurance reimbursement to rebuild the fire, or when we had the fire at the transfer station.
Wasn't aware you had a fire.
Yeah, we had a fire. When was that fire, Lance?
Just a little over a year ago.
A little over, what, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah,
Oh,
had a major fire in the pit, which melted down the controls for the compactor, melted the outside of the building. They had to take down the doors because it's the only way they could get into it to fight it.
Still working on getting some of the doors fixed. They've got all the electrical done, but some of the doors are still not quite fixed yet.
Answer it?
Well, so what you're saying is this is an insurance reimbursement?
On that particular one it is, but not all of them. I mean, there are other sources of money that come in, like Parks and Rec. He applies for grants. We don't know if he's going to get them or not because it's a competitive process. He applies for several, and when he gets them, we open the money so it's the authority to spend. But we don't, it's not property tax dollars.
Those particular ones aren't.
None of these are.
But might have been.
You what?
But might have been.
Not necessarily. The emergency management. The only way those would have been is had Tom Hendrick not got all those federal dollars applied for the assistant on the FMAG as quick as he did. And so they picked up, I think, 90% of the cost of that. And I think we've already paid our portion. But this, as the other agencies come in, if we had Tom, I could tell you which those are. Brad, tell you which those are, but like the Forest Service and others who put resources into that, it's reimbursed through that emergency management FMAC program.
FMAC, yeah.
So that might have been.
Maybe those of us who got involved on the ground with our own equipment should have submitted bills. I'm joking.
Well, no, and I don't know if there possibly was the opportunity to do that. I don't know. So, any other questions?
I just think it's awfully strange that, because from the public notice, she couldn't tell what any of that stuff was.
And that's why.
Would have been helpful if your website had some details so that the public had a chance to know exactly what you were talking about.
That's why we hold the hearing, so you can ask the questions.
Well, probably wouldn't have been here if I had the explanation then to look at it.
Well, maybe in the future, just give the clerk a call. I think you know how to get hold of us.
Or email. I try to respond.
Okay.
Ready for a motion?
Yep.
I would move that we approve the budget opening for the amount specified.
Okay, and I would second it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thanks.